Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where me and my friend Isaac come together to create an entire world out of a random prompt. There is also a motorcycle outside my window, which is just great.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. They're gone now, so we're just gonna continue as if it never happened.
Okay, anyway, so today's prompt, we decided, let's do a fall-themed world before
it's not fall
Thanksgiving
anymore. Well, no, this comes right after Thanksgiving.
Oh, when this comes out, it's going to be after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
So, before fall officially ends. Anyway, so the world that we're building is the Eternal Fall.
Ooh.
Which is just something that I thought of because I watched Ruby. And they have a forest that is it's a forest of eternal fall or eternal autumn. I don't remember what they called it exactly. Yeah. But there's just constant leaves falling. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a very basic prompt. Let's see how far we can push this. Let's elaborate on this. What else would you find in the world of eternal fall?
Well, okay, so it's fall in the sense that the leaves aren't just changed colors, but they're actually, constantly falling.
Yes, so they'd have to be regrowing very quickly.
Well, the leaves have to be decomposing very quickly, or else you're just going to be buried.
Yeah, that's also true. I hadn't thought of that.
So, it's got some rich soil, let me tell you, but...
Yeah.
At the same time, does that mean, we have this thing where... Actually, the trees never grow because the taller they grow, the faster the ground grows, too, because you're just constantly making dirt and stuff from decomposed leaves. Is that a thing? Am I going too scientific for this?
No, I don't think you are. Wow! This one little forest, this one little location in Ruby has so many implications!
Well, yeah, if you were to dig in this area, you would just find that the trees just keep going down.
It's just roots.
It's not even roots. It's the trunk of the tree goes down and the roots are in there. And then I guess, the roots sprout out of the trunk. And you have some weird-looking trees if you actually dig.
Wow. Okay, so... let's think about this. So, where do all the leaves go? Do they decompose, or is there something else getting rid of them?
True. That affects my dirt theory. If they decompose, they just turn into dirt, and that's why the soil, it's a higher up area than other places. But I guess something else could happen to the leaves. I don't know, is there people collecting them for some reason? Are these specialized leaves that don't really decompose or anything, so they're good to be pressed for decorative reasons?
Maybe. I'm thinking there has to be a lot of people collecting them constantly across the entire forest.
Yeah,
otherwise they're just going to keep piling. Because again, it's constantly falling. That's a lot of leaves.
Yeah, so I think it does just decompose quickly. leaves in general decompose pretty fast. They're pretty good about that. But a society where in a environment where leaves are constantly growing, it seems like the reproduction of leaves is just extra fast. So you have the trees grow, so they turn green, but then they change colors really fast, and then they fall, and then they decompose fast. It's like a tree on an escalated life cycle. And it just, because a tree would spend so much time in the fall cycle, that's why it looks like an area of eternal fall, but in reality, it's just a tree with a sped up cycle.
Yeah, but something I'm thinking about is would the leaves at any point be green? When they're first forming?
I think so. I think they start green, but then they change color fast.
Well, now it's suddenly the world doesn't look like eternal autumn. It looks like a weird blend of summer and fall.
Well, okay. Well, let me talk to you about the science of trees and how they develop. The green is living leaves, though. So are these trees in a state of near death always? Because winter happens because a tree goes to sleep. Trees hibernate. So that's what
Yeah.
winter is. So is this a constant state? So, like, fall is like the near starvation point. It's the point where they start lacking food, so they're getting ready to sleep. So are you saying you're sentencing this forest of trees into a state of constant near hibernation, near starvation? And I don't think a tree can
Yes.
survive being eternally fall.
Okay, so clearly something is causing them to very quickly grow leaves and drop them. We're
Yeah.
gonna say it's magic.
Okay.
Like that's the only thing that really makes sense as to why a tree would do that. We're gonna say it's magic.
It's like Narnia. Like, the fact that those trees survived the eternal winter was Narnia. It was because it's
Yeah.
a magical sleep. Because a tree cannot survive eternal winter very well. Eventually, they starve out and die.
So these trees are not gonna die or think they're just sped up. It's just magic. That's
Yeah.
what we're saying. It's an enchanted forest.
Ooh.
Why is it enchanted? Do we want to go into that? What
What's
is
the
the source of
motivation?
this magic?
Yeah, like, what's the motivation for eternal fall? Like, I know
Okay,
it's the
so
best season of
I'm-
all time, but still.
I'm more of a summer guy myself, but
Oh.
yeah, it fall's good too.
Summer's like my second least favorite season. After
Oh.
winter. Actually, winter and summer flip-flop. When I'm in winter, I hate winter, and when I'm in summer, I hate summer.
I hate winter except for when I have a good amount of wet snow, because then I can build giant snowmen.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's off topic.
Yep.
So my immediate thought for some reason went to, there was this elderly witch who wanted a beautiful garden and loved fall so much that she started enchanting the trees to eternally stay in a state of autumn where the leaves are constantly falling and always this sort of gold and red color.
Yeah.
And this was meant to be a part of her garden.
Oh.
And she loved it so much she turned it into, like, she just made the whole forest this way. Maybe she's got an actual garden located somewhere within the forest, and
Ooh.
this is just sort of the surrounding area. That's what came to my mind immediately for some reason when you were talking about motivation.
It feels
why
like
that's
a
where my
good
mind went,
quest
but-
story. Like, to find the garden of the witch in the enchanted fall forest. It sounds like
Yeah.
the start of a lot of fairy tales. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty good, simple way of explaining how a forest would end up being enchanted to eternally stay in a state of fall, like what the motivation would be. Well, the motivation is it looks pretty.
It does. And I agree. Like, fall trees are very pretty. I'd say they're prettier than, like, just the green trees. We all like the fall.
Yeah, they're definitely prettier.
And
Except
there's
for when they're brown.
I mean, have you ever, like, so the aesthetic of either driving or walking through, and then a big gust of wind comes and you're just surrounded by leaves as you walk or drive through it? It's just
Yes.
magic. Like, it's just so magical, and I love it.
I mean, we get that a lot where I live. We're just surrounded by trees, and we get the serious problem where as soon as all the trees start to go pretty, suddenly there's this storm that comes in, and it blows all of the leaves off the trees at once, and it's very annoying.
Yeah, well, the advantage of where I live is it's not as windy, but I live in an area that is known for its fall, like the look of the trees, and I can tell why. It's glorious. I live next to 2 giant lakes. I've got trees out. It was such a pretty fall, and I have so many pretty fall pictures now, and I love it. Fall is my favorite season. It's just so pretty.
I'm jealous.
It's yeah.
I was in England when like for a week, and during that time, all the leaves fell off the trees.
Rip.
Like,
Yeah,
like
ours
it
are all
started
gone now because
when
we
I
have
left, and then
snow.
when I came back, they were all gone.
We have snow now already,
Yeah,
and
we got that too.
I'm not.
Anyway, this is still off topic. So furthermore, building on this world and the witch and everything, do we want to world build the witch now?
I don't know. I kind of want to
Like-
focus on this more because I feel like the idea of because animals interact differently in like a fall-like setting. So are the animals also in this like not to be morbid or anything, but this constant like excitement of preparing for a winter that never comes, and therefore they're kind of gouging themselves Do we have fat animals?
Maybe. I mean, I think that the animals might have done that at one point, but then eventually they adapt and realize winter's not coming, and then they stop gouging themselves.
Yeah.
Like, they just realize, oh, this place is just in this eternal state. Like, winter's not here. It's not coming. It's just going to stay like this. And then they just live normal lives in this forest.
Yeah. And they just never have hibernate. I feel like there were other benefits to why they hibernate versus just winter, so I guess they just never do that, though.
Yeah, I don't think that they would hibernate. They might start to hibernate. They might try hibernating at first, but then they realize, oh, wait, winter's not coming.
Yeah, I guess it also depends on the weather, because it's the weather that affects it. So if it's like a chilly fall area, then you'll just have a lot of sleepy creatures. They're not going to be as energetic as like in the summer or spring ever. Which, you know, again, I hate to go scientific, but I'm just intrigued by like what actually would happen if a fall world existed. Because I don't think the animals would do well, because there's no, like, the drive to have families and stuff usually occurs in like spring and summer. And somewhat in the fall, but I don't know.
Something I'm wondering about was what kind of food would grow, because my immediate thought is apples and corn.
Yeah.
Those are the foods associated with fall.
I mean, pumpkins and squash, and most crops, like, a lot of crops grow fine in fall, and a lot of crops that, like, the reason they don't grow well in fall is because winter hits. So I feel like you could still have quite a few summer crops grow in this area, because you don't have to worry about, like, the snow or the winter coming to, like, kill it.
So if the trees are constantly dropping leaves, are the apple trees constantly dropping apples, and are the corn stalks, are they constantly producing ears of corn? Are they
are they also enchanted not to die and just to keep producing?
I imagine that since this is an individual doing this, the witch is just going to say, no, just like the maple trees and stuff, they'll constantly produce leaves. But the other crops, well, that would be kind of annoying if apples just started piling up under the tree. So instead, maybe the apples and stuff, they grow normally.
Her own garden might have that, though. Like, her own personal garden might be enchanted that way.
Yeah. But I mean, I imagine, again, it would be annoying, so maybe what she would do is she just sort of cast a spell on it or whatever, and suddenly a couple of apples might suddenly grow. She picks them, she eats them, she's done.
Yeah.
Like it's a very brief speeding up the trees.
So is this an eternal witch?
This is just the sort of spells that the witch knows. The witch is just someone who primarily focuses on spells on plants to make them grow and produce faster. Like that could just be sort of a theme with her and her type of magic.
I mean, I'm also kind of assuming it works on people because she uses it on herself to keep herself young. So.
I mean, we could add in that
do
element.
we have the classic witch you go to if you want a child? Because she's got that magic set. I'm just saying. It's a classic fairy tale trope. Rapunzel has it in like the original versions where you go to a witch to get, because you can't have kids.
Yeah, she could maybe do that.
Yeah.
What else could she do?
I mean, what else does she need to do? She's got her little garden. She gets visitors occasionally. I don't know. Is there like an era of like mystery shrouded around this forest, or is it like a place people are comfortable entering into?
What if? Okay, here's an interesting idea. What if this is a place where people were comfortable because they say, "Oh, the forest is so pretty, it's so nice," and maybe like around the edges of the forest, maybe there's these different rings. It's like the outer ring of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves it. It's a place where people hang out. But the deeper you go, the closer you get to the witch, and that's considered the more mysterious area where people generally do not venture because like no one fully understands this witch. Maybe she can't be trusted. Maybe she was outcast to the forest one day for some spells that she had cast, and then created the forest. Everybody said, well, we may not like the witch, but she did create a nice forest, and so they hang out around the edges of it, but they dare not venture inward.
Okay. So it's like a society. It's like I can't help but think of like the Enchanted Woods or something in like classic Grimm fairy tales, the Black Forest,
I mean,
which is an actual forest, but like the idea that people built around the forest because they're like intrigued by it, but they don't really dare enter it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they could enter like the edges of it. I assume we could also say maybe something else that pulls them into the forest. At least again, the edges is maybe the trees produce just the sweetest of maple syrups. It's just this great thing that the town is always collecting because it's just an endless supply of just the best tasting syrup ever because the witch just enchanted the trees to do that. And maybe the closer you get to the source of the magic and everything, so the deeper in you go to the forest, closer to the witch, you get sweeter and sweeter maple syrup. It might get to a point where it's too sweet and it would drive people away. I don't know, but you get better flavored syrup as you go in, and so this is the sort of thing where it's pulling people in deeper and deeper, but they choose not to go in. But then you have this one protagonist that decides, you know what, I want to go in and find just the sweetest, best tasting maple syrup ever, and goes directly to where the witch is, and then from there we get our story of, is the witch evil, is the witch good? And then you could do all sorts of things from that point. You could decide to make the witch evil, you could decide to make the witch good and misunderstood. Like all sorts of directions this sort of concept could go.
Yeah. You could have something go horribly wrong and suddenly the spell's broken and the trees are like, I don't know, either winter's coming or they're all this built up like half sleep, half not is just killing the trees because the spell's gone.
Okay, so what would cause the spell to be killed and cancelled? And
I mean, the witch dying would probably be one.
Oh, yeah, that might do it.
You know, you get all this mystery behind this person, and then someone thinks they're being the hero, and they kill the witch, and then suddenly, oops, they weren't the hero.
But then where do you go with that story? Now
it's time for someone to... Yeah, I'm about to say, it's time for someone to learn some magic. Which, I don't know, could be an interesting story that I don't think a lot of people touch on, is like the witch actually being a good person, but then they kill her. And then the spell that they relied on starts dying, and now people are trying to figure out magic.
Okay, so maybe it's about the protagonist trying to figure out magic, but then as they are figuring it out, the town starts to fear this individual, even though this individual is trying to fix what they had broken by killing the witch.
Yeah.
By essentially becoming the next witch.
Accidentally.
And meanwhile trying to explain, no, it's cool. This isn't like dark, twisted magic or anything. It's just you say some magic words and boom, you get some pretty leaves. And they're all like, no, this is black magic. You're summoning demons and all that. When it might have like no connection to that. It could be a different source of power entirely. It could be something that everybody has within them.
Yeah, but no one unlocks because it's, you know, it's looked down upon. Yeah, it's looked down upon to manipulate nature, while meanwhile they're profiting off of someone who's manipulating nature. You know, hypocrites.
Yeah.
Such.
It's like we will take the profit from manipulating nature, but we dare not manipulate it ourselves.
Exactly. Which I guess. Yeah, I mean, people do it, so I'm not, like, surprised by this. I'm sure I've done it myself, is I've taken advantage of someone.
I think it fits really well.
Yeah. It's an interesting setting. It's like, it's a classic story, but it's in a different setting, and there's some twists involved in it that I think could make it, like, stand out. But it definitely has that fairy tale vibe, and I love a good fairy tale styled story as a genre.
Yeah, I think that this sort of setting, like this has a lot of potential. There's all kinds of different ways you could go with this sort of setup. yeah, already I'm like, hey, this seems pretty good. Do we want to world build any further, or is this just going to be a really, really short one?
I was about to say, we haven't even hit 30 minutes yet. We're only at 20.
Yeah, like, huh.
I don't know. Do it.
Where else
maybe
can we go with this?
I mean, this could be like our short and sweet fall episode for people. You know, something to turn on when you're done with your Thanksgiving meal after 3 days, and yeah.
Yeah.
So it's also us getting back into it. So, you know, we had to take a break for reasons, and
lots and lots of reasons.
So many different reasons, but now we're starting to get back into it, and you know, it's a good little taster one of what's to come. Not every world has to be big and grand.
Yeah, this is like a simple, small, fairy tale world.
Yeah, that's the fun thing I think, honestly, about this podcast is sometimes we go on for ages, and then other times we're like, yep, and now we're done.
Yeah, like sometimes we do build the grand, over-the-top worlds that take an hour, and sometimes we're like, yeah, just a small little element, and not much to it.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to end it here, and we'll see what happens next week, because we never know. But we will be back, and we'll be back exploring a world or creating one of our own. So we will see you guys then, I guess. Bye!